Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm sorry about my camera. I know that something is off. However, it's not so important today. More importantly, to hear my voice, and we have a lot of pictures. We have a lot to do. I'm very, very excited, and I'm very mitragesh from this episode because it's our final one in what's become one of the most exciting things I ever had the privilege of learning, and of course, trying to teach it as well. And that is the world of Rav Kook meeting Chevron. It's really been a humbling privilege. Many of us were in Chevron earlier this week, so it's been really something special, taken on its own wings. And at times, especially for this year, as you'll see in a second, I had to work really hard. I had to work really, really hard on not running off on all these other top subtopics that came about this year, and I had to stay focused as possible. So this is the final shir in Rav Kook and Chevron, and at the end of the shir, I'll tell you what we're starting next week, which I'm very happy about. So we are basically going to be discussing the last few things that had to do with Rav Kook and the city of Chevron, the last few dealings that they had together. And the first thing you're going to see in front of you is a request from the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, who asks Rav Kook the following thing. Kvod Yedidi Harav HaGaon HaNodam Mefursan L'Shem Tila U'Tiferet B'tochachei Geonei Yaakov B'chol Merchavei Tevel B'katzvei Eretz Amud HaYemani Patish HaChazak Rav Poalim. Basically, that was like one big Hagdama of the Frierdiker Rebbe saying, the coolest rabbi that I know, the best dude in the world, Rav Avram Yitzchak Shlita HaKoyen. Shalom uvracha. מאת ידידי הרב הבלין שהכריע, קיבלתי מכתב אשר הערבים בחברון תיבנה ותיכונן, התחילו עוסקים בחפירות סביב אחוזתי שמה. There was a shaliach of Chabad at Hebron named, I think his name was Shimon Hablin, I'm not sure, Rabbi Hablin, and he sent Frierdiker Rebbe a letter that told him that the Arabs in Chevron began excavating right around the property that was purchased, not by the Frierdiker Rebbe, but was purchased way before that by the second Rebbe, by the Mittler Rebbe. Now, Chabad and Chevron is its whole own sugya. Hopefully we will do a whole series just on that, on Chabad and Chevron. And now is not the time to delve into also Bichlal, Rav Kook and Lubavitch. That's a whole nother topic as well. But the Frierdiker Rebbe is calling out to Rav Kook saying, I'm begging you, ובזה הנני מבקש מאוד, אשר יטיבנה לקחת את הצעדים הראויים כדי להגן על אחוזתי שמה. The Frierdiker Rebbe is asking Rav Kook, please do whatever you can to protect the property, the Lubavitch property there. And that was like one of the last things that Rav Kook was involved with regarding the city of Hebron. But again, it's not for now to delve into the depths of that relationship because it's pretty cool. But we'll get there one day as well. And the next thing that we're going to be seeing is a letter that Rav Kook writes upon hearing of the founding of Kfar Etzion. Now, for those of us that live here in Eretz Yisrael, you'll see this in the picture next in line. For those of us living in Eretz Yisrael, you see, especially here, those of us who are living in the Gush, this is a very special document. This document is written in Chodesh Tevet Tafresh Tzadik Daled. That means probably January or February, maybe January 1934. And Rav Kook writes, Lichvod Chevrat El Hahar. That must have been the Chevra back then that were the contractors that were building Eretz Yisrael in the 30s. So look what he says here. מגיע לי הידיעה על דבר מפעלם החשוב בהקמת כפר עציון. I got the word that you're building a place called כפר עציון בתור חטיבה וסמל לשאיפה הנכונה, and you're building it as a unit and as a symbol for the proper aspiration להתקדמותנו ביישוב ההררי. As we get more and more involved in building the Yeshuv HaHarari, the mountain settlement, But he says over here, ubiyichud likvoa. This is a little bit of a hard word here. Maybe it's mahapach yeshuv or mahalach yeshuv ben Yerushalayim v'Chevron. The beautiful thing about it is that you're creating a settlement between Yerushalayim and Chevron. Like today, I'm sitting here right now, learning with all of you, mamash, in the middle of Yerushalayim and Chevron, but there are probably 50,000 other Jews in this region where I am too, between Yerushalayim and Chevron. But over there, this wasn't the case. So he's saying it's so beautiful that you're doing this between Yerushalayim and Chevron, ha'arim she'einei Yisrael v'libotem elehem nesuot mikedem az, the two cities upon which the eyes of Am Yisrael and their hearts have been looking at and glazing towards forever. Gdola hi asiti, gdola hi שהיישוב העררי יתרחב, it should be bigger and bigger, והבנים אשר יתקבצו בנקודות החביבות הללו יהיו מסמלים מהמלך חייהם ברוח ישראל ותורתו. So Rav Kook is basically giving this bracha that this should be something big, it should be a big thing in the world. Kfar Etzion should be a big thing in the world, and it should expand. It should expand. So I don't know, if in the Moatzah of Efrat they would be so happy about me saying that Efrat is an expansion of Kfar Etzion, but it definitely, the Jewish dwelling and the Jewish settlement of Gush Etzion has blossomed and keeps on blossoming every single second. And as we're speaking, we are building our shul here between Yerushalayim and Chevron, and it is the if not the greatest, one of the greatest moments to be alive in, that this is happening right now. And these words were written in 1934, January 1934. Now, I want you to look at the following picture while I describe to you the following scene. This is the last picture we have of Rav Kook. And it's not so easy to look at. I've spent a lot of time, glare mamage, just focusing on this picture, on these eyes, on this face. This picture was taken 1935. It's the last picture we have of Rav Kook. And just look into his eyes while I describe to you the last days. So the last days of Rav Kook, so his Talmud, Rav Nazir, comes one more time to Chevron, and he comes to daven for his Rebbe. And the Rav Nazir gives a description to what was happening in that last period. Remember, Rav Kook passes away Gimel Elul in 1935, in the summer, in August of 1935. But after Pesach already of that year, Rav Kook got very sick, and it was bad. And on Shavuos, the Rav Nazir says that Rav Kook came in for Kriyas Torah. He came up to the Torah. He was Kohen, so he said the Akdamas of Shavuos, and he said it sweetly, with a very sweet voice, with crying and with simcha, like he did every single year. But the Rav Nazir said that he sensed that this was really the last one. This was the last time that they would hear Rav Kook's song. So he says that him and Rav Yaakov Moshe Chalap and a few more went to Chevron to daven in Marat Machpelah for the Rav Kook. They were there towards evening, and they put their faces on the wall, and they heard a voice. They heard a very deep voice crying from the depths, and they didn't know what they were hearing, but they were freaked out from it. Right after that, after Shavuos, so they brought the Rav to the Beit Havra'ah in Kiryat Moshe. The Rav did not stay in his house. He went to the Beit Havra'ah, to this old age home in Kiryat Moshe. And the Rav Nazir says, I was sending to Rav Kook copies of Oros HaKodesh for him to look over while he was there, that are ready to be printed, with different ha'arot and brachas for Refuah Shlema. But after, this was on Rosh Chodesh Elul when he did this, but 3 days later, on Sunday, Gimel Elul, Taf Reish Tzadik Hey, is the day that Rav Kook passed away. And he says, Kaba Ohar Ha'orot, the light of lights dimmed, Olam choshech ba'adi, and I entered a world of darkness. That's what it was for the Talmidim of Rav Kook to experience his Petira. So if this is the last episode of what we're doing, then how did we get here so fast, and what's left to talk about? Well, what's left to talk about with Rav Kook and Chevron may be one of the most important things to talk about. And for this, I just need to give you a little bit of dates, a little bit of a background. We'll do it very simple, but it'll help us understand what we have left over here. As you know, Rav Kook is born in 1865 in a town called Griva in Latvia. And at the age of 21, now I just want to say, as I was looking into this, I came upon things, I'm telling you, I can't believe I didn't know. I can't believe they're not more known. As much as we learn about Rav Kook, this is a sod. This tzaddik is a secret. And remember, everything we're saying right now, this is not a sheer on the history of Rav Kook's life. It's regarding Chevron, and you'll see in a second, so just stick with me. But again, 1865, Rav Kook is born in Latvia. And at the age of 21, in 1886, Rav Kook marries Alta Bat Sheva, the daughter of a big tzaddik, the Aderet. And in 1888, Rav Kook's first daughter is born. And her name was Freda Chana. Now, in 1889, this is 3 years after Rav Kook gets married, and a year after his first daughter is born, Rav Kook's wife dies. Alta Bat Sheva, she died, leaving Rav Kook a very young widower and a father to a little girl. A year later, in 1890, Rav Kook remarries to his first wife's cousin. Her name was Raisa Rivka. Raisa Rivka was the daughter of the twin of Rav Kook's father-in-law. Okay, Rav Kook's father-in-law had a twin, and his twin's daughter is the one that Rav Kook marries. He marries his wife's first cousin, and a year later, in 1891, Rav Tzvi Yehuda, Rav Kook's only son, is born. And then in 1899, his second daughter, Bitya Miriam, is born. I think we have a picture of all three children. Yeah. This is pretty out there, huh? Look at that. That's Rav Kook's oldest daughter, Alta Bat Sheva, Freda Chana. Then it's little Rav Tzvi Yehuda. And then on the bottom is Bitya Miriam. Now, I want you to play, the shir today is continuing based on Bitya Miriam, on the second daughter that you see, okay, right there. And she's born in 1899. So this picture probably is, I don't know, 1903, 1904, mashu kaze. So everyone knows that Rav Kook makes Aliyah in 1904. And 3 years later, Rav Kook has another daughter born, and her name is Esther Yael. Now, here's where this is hard to swallow. Here's where it gets really, really crazy. And the more I'm looking into this, the more that I'm realizing we have to dedicate a whole chapter just on this. I want you to look at the next picture. כוס תנחומים, הלשכה הראשית של אגודת אחווה בירושלים, משתתפת בצערה העמוק ובהאסון הגדול של מרן הגאון הרבי אברהם יצחק הכהן קוק שליטה ומשפחתו בהילקח מהם ביתם אסתר יעל, ימצאו ניחומים בתוך שער אבלי ציון בירושלים. What's going on over here? Esther Yael, at the age of 12, this would be 1919, I believe. Esther Yael, Rav Kook's daughter, dies. And the story of her death is very mysterious. It's very spooky. It's very, very heavy. From the little that I saw inside, from a few different sources, It happened as they were learning in the yeshiva, falling off of a roof. It's too spooky to get in right now. But I wanted to just give a picture here when I'm mentioning Rav Kook's children. He had 4 children. Rav Kook is a widower at the age of 23, and his youngest daughter dies in 1919. So Rav Kook is left with a second wife and three children. So the reason why we brought that up is obvious. We're talking about Rav Kook's world. Now, I told you before, if we can go back to the picture before, because the picture before, I don't have a picture of Esther Yael, but the picture before is the 3 children. And I just want to get a clear picture. The one on the left is the daughter from the first marriage. Then on the right is Rav Tzvi Yehuda. And then in the middle is Bitya Miriam. By the way, we are dedicating this shir in memory of the mother of our dear friend Rachel Trugman. This shir should be Leilui Nishmas Fegel Bas Nachman David. She should have an Elias Neshama and Nachas from her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Le'ol Me'ad. We love you, Rachel and Rebabim Aryeh. Thank you so much for being with us. So, back over here in this picture, this little daughter, because this little daughter in the middle is the key to the rest of our shir, and this is fascinating. This daughter ends up marrying a very, very big tzaddik, who you'll be seeing right now in front of you, and he is Rav Shalom Natan Ra'anan. Rav Shalom Natan Ra'anan is Rav Kook's son-in-law. He was a big, big tzaddik. He was the one that would give shir when Rav Kook wasn't giving shir. He was a big Rav to many students that are big Rabbanim today in Eretz Yisrael. There's a lot to say about him. Again, it's not the time right now. Here's a picture of him walking down the steps in Rav Kook's in Beit Harav. Obviously, this is later years. He passes away in 1972. So I assume this picture is late 60s, early 70s. And there's a lot to say about Rav Shalom Natan Ra'anan, a lot. And maybe again, like with everyone, like I keep on showing you, with every character that we're meeting, every personality that we're meeting, there's so much to say about him. He was best friends with his brother-in-law, Rav Tzvi Yehuda. Later in life, for those of you that are more involved with Israeli culture, he was the Yoshev Rosh Va'adat HaShoftim Shel Pras Yerushalayim L'Safrut Toranit. If you're not Israeli, it wouldn't even help you if I even translate that. But in 1968, he gets the Torah Yakir Yerushalayim. That's a very, very big kavod. So this is amazing. This is Rav Shalom Natan Ra'anan. We have pictures of their Sheva Brachot in the house of Rav Kook. This is Rav Kook's home in the Sheva Brachot of his marriage to Rav Kook's daughter. And you see in the back, to Rav Kook's left, our right, that is Rav Yaakov Moshe Charlap over there. And I believe, even though I can't see clearly over here, that the second to Rav Kook's right, not right next to him, but 2 next to him, seems to be Harav HaNazir. And when you look in the front of the page, the front of the picture, the second person on the right seems to me to be Rav Tzvi Yehuda. No, not him. The one, that seems to be Rav Kook's son, Rav Tzvi Yehuda Kohen Kook. If I had to guess over here who the chassan is, it would be the one that's to the right of Rav Kook, to the left of Rav Kook. Other side, I assume, I don't know exactly. We also have a picture of the women's tish. This is Sheva Brachos. Look at this. In the middle is Rav Kook's daughter, Bitya Miriam. This is amazing. Look at this. This is fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. So they get married, and they have 3 children. They have 3 children, and we're going to talk very fast about the 3 children. They have a son named Avram Yitzchak, named after her father. And also, dramatically, he passes away at the age of 20. He drowned in the ocean in Bat Yam on the beach in 1959 at the age of 20. They also have a daughter, Tzipora, who marries a big Rav Frum. And they have a son that's born in 1934. And the son that's born in 1934 means that he was born in Rav Kook's life, means that he was also the sandak of this tzaddik. Rav Kook was the sandak of this following boychik, who you're going to see right now, whose name was Rav Eliyahu Shlomo Ra'anan. If you could skip to the first picture of the child. Rav Eliyahu Shlomo Ra'anan. Now I want you to look, as I'm talking about Rav Eliyahu Shlomo Ra'anan, I just want you to look at him and look at this beautiful yid. And he was born in September 21st, 1934, Yud Bet Tishrei, the 12th of Tishrei, in Yerushalayim, and he was the grandson of Rav Kook. He was Bitia Miriam's son. And of course, he was born in that house, and that's where Merkaz Harav was. That's where he learned. That's where he eventually learned for smicha. And you'll see pictures of him. We have really special pictures of him throughout the ages. This is very important. Rav Eliyahu Shlomo Ra'anan. And he ends up being a very, very interesting, special, but yet very pashut yidla as well. Very, very pashut yidla as well. Continue with the pictures. He, over here, is being tested with his brother by Rav Yaakov Moshe Charlap. It's a very special picture of the two Einiklach of Rav Kook. This is a picture of him with his father. Or maybe that's actually with Rav Tzvi Yehuda. That looks like Rav Tzvi Yehuda. That looks like Rav Kook's son. That's probably with Rav Kook's son. I'm not sure, but I think so. Now, this is him already as an older person with probably one of his grandchildren. And I want to tell you a little bit about his life, about this tzaddik. This tzaddik was someone very, very special. For many, many years, him and his wife were, like we said, simple Yiddelach, learning Torah. He was osek in Machon, the Machon for the Mishnah Brura, Machon Hora'ah in Yerushalayim. And they lived in Yerushalayim for many, many years. Oh, this is an amazing picture. Sorry, I just got very excited. Look at this picture. This picture was discovered a few years ago. The second, I don't know who the person is all the way on the right, but the second, on our screen, the second person to the right is Rav Kook's brother, Rav Shaul Chana. That's Rav Kook's brother. The person next to him is Rav Shalom Natan Ra'anan. Next to him is Rav Tzvi Yehuda HaKohen. And the boy over here on the bottom is most probably, according to most people, the tzaddik that we're speaking about, Rav Eliyahu Shlomo Ra'anan. Look at this, this is unbelievable. As you can see, this is in Rav Kook's house. This is probably all the, it seems like it's all the Modaot Evel that they preserved there about Rav Kook's P'tira. So again, so later on in life, this tzaddik that we're seeing in front of us, they live, that's him with his father, Rav Shalom Natan Ra'anan. They moved to a place, a yeshuv called Hadar Beitar for 7 years. Hadar Beitar was was nothing. There was nothing there. It eventually becomes the Ir Beitar, and they lived there for 7 years before. And then when the city became a Haredi city, so that small Gar'in that moved there to Hadar Beitar to settle the place, they left, and their 3 kids were already older. And Rav Eliyahu Shlomo Ra'anan wants to continue with the ideology of settling in Eretz Yisrael. His wife is 50 years old, he's 58 years old, and they're offered to go and move to Chevron. And he really wanted to. But everyone said to him, you're not 21, and Chevron is not an easy place to live in. I gotta live there. He says, it doesn't matter. I'll be okay. And they were shown the shchuna of Beit Hadassah, Avram Avinu, but then they were shown the Admot Yishai. They were shown Tel Romeda. And his wife said that when they went up to go and check out Tel Romeda, they felt air. They felt I could live here. Now, again, remind you, who is this guy? This is Rav Kook's grandson. And when they got to Tel Romeda, and everyone knows that's where Kever Yishai and Ruth is, when they got up there was a sense of, she felt, the Rebbetzin felt, there's enough air for me here. This is where I want to live. But people said to them, you guys are crazy. This place is dangerous. It's mevudad, it's isolated, it's a high aliyah, it's a hard aliyah. You don't even have a car. But they decided to live there b'simcha. And they asked Rav Ra'anan, they said to him, how could you live? You lived in the city, you lived comfortably. Now you're going to go and move into a caravan at the age of 58? Now listen to his answer. He said, what do you mean? I may be living in a caravan, but beneath my caravan was David HaMelech's palace. Where else in the world can your backyard be the place where your fathers walked on 4,000 years ago? Talk about ideology. Look at this beautiful, beautiful poem. It's unbelievable. And it was not easy times, obviously. But unfortunately, very, very, this is just one of the most unfortunate things that ever happened. In Israel, we have a very interesting thing called Bagatz. Bagatz Beit Din Gavoa Letzedek. Bagatz is the Supreme Court. And right in front of their caravan where they lived, there was an emda of Tzahal. There was an army post which was on the rooftop of an Arab house, obviously protecting the few Yidlach that were living there. And it very much bothered the Arab that there's an army post on his roof, and he petitioned to Bagatz, to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court went with what he said, and they removed that army post from there. And that was basically right next to where the caravan of Rav Ra'anan and his wife was. And the rest brings us to, I remember this as a kid. I remember when this happened, it had a very big, very, very big effect on me. I just turned 18. In the summer of 1998, it was Erev Rosh Chodesh Elul. There was an Arab there that wanted to burn up the whole shchuna of caravans on Tel Romeda. All the caravans were very close to the gader, were close to the fence, dividing between the neighborhoods. It's just that in the caravan where Rav Shlomo Ra'anan lived, it must have been the first caravan where this terrorist saw to begin his complete demolition of the Jewish neighborhood. His wife says that she was, I think it was Thursday night. It was Erev Rosh Chodesh Elul. It was a Thursday night, Yechol Liot, I don't remember right now. It was August 20th, 1998. And the Rav here is now 63. And it was Thursday night, and his wife was getting ready for Shabbos. She was preparing Shabbos. And the caravan, into the caravan, a terrorist comes inside at 10 p.m. The wife starts hearing crazy, crazy screaming. And she also smells something. Because the mechabel, the terrorist prepared bakbukei tavera, Molotov cocktails. And when she hears this crazy screaming, she goes into where the screaming was coming from, which was the bedroom. And this behema stabbed him to death in his bed, in his room. After he was stabbed, he still tried he wasn't dead yet, but he tried to the wife said, with all his koach, to go into the kitchen to try to warn me. And suddenly the wife says, I was standing in front of Malach HaMavet, Yimach Shemo V'Zichro, as my husband, she says, tried to come and warn me, he fell. And I started screaming, and the terrorist ran away. And she bent down to try to lift up her husband. And while she's bending down to see her husband, she can see fire coming out of the bedroom because it was he had thrown the bottle to the cocktail to light up the whole caravan. And a caravan is very flammable, obviously. So she started screaming to take out all the kids, whoever was there, grandkids, whoever was living there in the whole area. And she saved a lot of people. And they were able to put out the fire. But the tzaddik, Rav Shlomo Eliyahu Ranan, was not saved. And here's a picture of his kever. He's buried on Har HaZeitim. I assume close to his grandfather. So this is really mesmerizing. This is Rav Kook's grandson. That's literally slaughtered in the place that Rav Kook himself cried and begged world Jewry in the 1920s and 30s to wake up and rebuild. And as a result of the Supreme Court's decision to remove an army post from a place where they were clearly protecting Yidden, Rav Kook's grandson was stabbed to death. Rav Eliyahu Shlomo Ra'anan, and he stabbed to death at the age of 63. Needless to say, in things like this, it's like usually in series, you're like, okay, we're going to end off on a high note. We're going to end off on, well, the truth is, we could end off on a high note in the same room where Rav Shlomo Eliyahu Ra'anan was killed. A kollel called Or Shlomo opened. Sfarim were written in his memory. Rav Mordechai Eliyahu was the one that says you have to mamish make yeshiva on the place where he was buried, in the place where he was killed. And already that Shabbos, after he was killed, they began to put together a yeshiva called Or Shlomo. And this is like it's an amazing thing that you and I are sitting here and we're learning about this tzaddik Rav Kook. And I feel that the fact that his grandson, his daughter's son was killed over there in Tel Romeda, it leaves for us, a very big achrayut, that if we say that we always take our learning to the level of asiyah and tefillah, so our hitchabrut, our hitkashrut to Chevron, Baruch Hashem, I'm sure it already is strong now, but now even so much more so, after learning about Rav Kook's connection and his grandson's connection specifically, his grandson being killed there at the age of 63. So it's now it's our time. Now it's our time to reconnect to Chevron, to be there as much as we can, to raise the awareness of it as much as we can, and to take in all the Torah that we learned on this subject. I'm going to sing one nigun in honor of all the learning we did, and then tell you what we're starting next week. Okay? Ay bigla lavai, doishi abani, besavi geula livnei benayem, bigla lavai, doishi abani. Besavi geula livnei benayem. Ay bilal v'seishia bahanim teishia bahanim. Besavi geula livnei benayem. La 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 la, oh do do, ay 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 day la 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 day da da day day da day 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 oy 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 bila ahava Savi, Savi, Yola, Yola, Living, oh, yo, da 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 oh yeah, da da So I was debating, what do we do? Where do we go? Where do we go from here? And lo pashut, because I felt so strong to just continue with our learning about Chevron. And I also feel so connected now to continuing to explore the world of Rav Kook. So what do we do? So obviously we're gonna have to do both somehow. I don't know how. But for next week, what we're gonna be starting is going to be a 3 or 4 part series, depending on how much we have, on Rav Kook and the world of Breslov. The connection of Rav Kook with the world of Breslov. There's a lot there. Again, the second you start to peek inside, you realize there's so much more. Was Rav Kook a Breslover? Doesn't seem like it. Ma Kesher? Stay tuned. That's Bezrat Hashem starting next Thursday morning. So thank you so much. Ashreinu. I want to thank Noam Arnon, the dover of the Yeshuva Yehudi in Chevron, my dear friend Noam. I saw him on Sunday. I spoke to him the next day. He really provided the basis for most of the learning that we did. But in his schut, we found a lot more things which he's now going to be incorporating into his studies and into his lecturing and into the nachala of Rav Kook and Chevron. So, Ashreinu shezachinu yagdil Torah v'yadir. I also want to thank Ilan Hirschfeld from Ranana, who was the first person that brought me to Chevron as a child. And each and every one of you, we should be privileged to learn for many, many more years. May the schut of the Kedoshim in Tafresh Peitet, may the schut of the Kedoshim that like we learned, that were expelled from the city in 1936, and every single tzaddik that ever gave his life for the city of Chevron, and the schut of all those that are there right now, our kesher and our hitchabrut to our roots should be strengthened stronger and stronger forever. It should be forever for all of us, a schut for us and our children. Have a wonderful rest of the day, everybody.